$5 can't buy much these days, maybe a coffee if you're lucky. But in the year 1887, $5 and a wild dream was all a man named John W. Nordstrom needed to spark a retail revolution that would redefine American luxury. And today, his great-grandsons are betting $3.8 billion that his old world values can survive in our one-click universe. And while you might think you know Nordstrom, yes, the time they spent 2 hours helping you find the perfect wedding shoes counts, the story behind those pristine storefronts and legendary service reveals something surprising about what we're really buying. Indeed, it's not just designer labels and premium denim. It's a century-old promise that began in the Klondike Gold Rush and now faces its greatest test as Eric and Pete Nordstrom attempt to preserve their family soul in an age where algorithms predict our desires before we even have them. Thus, in today's episode, we'll share the full goss with you, from a humble Seattle shoe store to a retail empire that redefined American luxury as we describe. The Nordstrom brothers, when your family conquers luxury fashion. Eric and Pete Nordstrom, the dashing great-grandsons of John Nordstrom, have recently tossed their hats, and, not to mention, a cool $3.8 billion into the ring to take the iconic Seattle-based retailer private. And with fortunes estimated at $95 million and $114 million respectively as of 2024, the brothers are hardly window shopping. But let's be frank, given their deep pockets and stakes in the company, these estimates might just be the tip of the financial iceberg. Now, the brothers' wealth springs from their deep-seated roles in the family business. Yes, that Nordstrom, the department store that is practically the first purchase of every newly minted millionaire in America. There's Eric, the CEO with the Midas touch, and Pete, the president and chief brand officer with an eye for style, who collectively own a 33.4% chunk of Nordstrom Inc. And these two aren't just in it for the love of fashion. They own the runway. Yet, despite their overflowing coffers, the Nordstrom brothers sport a remarkably low profile. Indeed, you won't catch them splurging on gold-plated yachts or flaunting diamond-studded cufflinks. Thus, their brand of wealth whispers class, not screams it, staying true to the family's legacy of valuing diligent work and pristine customer service over lavish displays of excess. But the latest plot twist involves their alliance with El Puerto de Liverpool, a Mexican retail heavyweight, which has snagged nearly a 10% stake in Nordstrom. Together, they've pitched a sweet deal at $23 per share, a sumptuous 35% premium over the stock's price tag, when whispers of the deal first tickled the market's ears back in March. This princely offer unfolds just as Nordstrom begins to strut out of a sales slump. By the second quarter of 2024, the tills were ringing to the tune of a 3.4% rise in total sales. The real showstopper, however, has been the Nordstrom Rack division, where sales leaped by an impressive 8.8%. The backdrop to this financial theatre includes the recent curtain call of Bruce Nordstrom, the patriarch and former chairman who passed away last May at the ripe age of 90. This changing of the guard might well have set the stage for this bold private takeover. Currently, the buyout is under the scrutiny of a special committee within Nordstrom's board, a team as discerning as any fashion critic. Should they give their nod of approval, this acquisition could stitch a whole new pattern into the fabric of Nordstrom's 122-year-old history. However, in order to better understand how the changing of the guard of this iconic brand is likely to play out for the Nordstrom brothers, we'll have to roll back the clock and head over to 19th century Sweden in the next chapter. In the bitter winter of 1887, a young Swedish immigrant named John W. Nordstrom stepped onto American soil with $5 in his pocket and not a word of English on his tongue. What followed would transform not just his own life, but the very landscape of American retail. Though none could have predicted it then, as the penniless immigrant made his way across the vast continent, taking whatever work his calloused hands could find. The awakening came in 1897, when whispers of gold in the Klondike reached his ears. While thousands would find only failure in those frozen Alaskan wastes, Nordstrom emerged after 2 grueling years with $13,000, a fortune at the time that would seed an empire. But it wasn't the gold itself that would prove most valuable. It was a chance meeting with a shoemaker named Carl F. Wallin that would alter the course of retail history. The small shoe store they opened in 1901 at 4th and Pike in Seattle seemed unremarkable, a modest 20-foot storefront, nothing more. Yet, within those narrow confines, Nordstrom was already laying the foundation of something far greater. And his philosophy was deceptively simple: offer customers the finest service, selection, quality, and value. But in this simplicity lay a revolutionary approach to American retail. As the business grew, Nordstrom's sons, Everett, Elmer, and Lloyd, watched and learned. In 1928, at 57, John Nordstrom sold his share to his 2 eldest sons. The following year, Wallin followed suit. This transition marked not just a change in ownership, but a transformation in how the business would operate. You see, the brothers instituted an unusual system of rotating titles, sharing the presidency among themselves, a structure that flew in the face of traditional corporate hierarchy but proved remarkably effective. It was during the crushing years of the Great Depression that the true genius of the Nordstrom approach revealed itself. While other retailers faltered and failed, the brothers doubled down on their father's philosophy. They understood something profound about American retail, that in times of hardship, customers would remember not just what they bought, but how they were treated when buying it. Therefore, the brothers' method was methodical, deliberate. They trained their staff with an intensity that bordered on obsession, instilling in them not just knowledge about their products, but an almost religious devotion to customer service. This wasn't mere salesmanship, it was the creation of an experience, one that would set Nordstrom apart from every other retailer in America. Soon, the post-war boom of the 1940s and 50s provided fertile ground for expansion. The brothers moved cautiously but deliberately, choosing their locations with surgical precision. Each new store was not just a point of sale, but a symbol of their philosophy, a physical manifestation of their commitment to service and quality. By 1960, what had begun as a humble shoe store had grown into the largest shoe retailer in the country, with 8 locations spread across Washington and Oregon. But the numbers alone don't tell the full story. What the Nordstrom brothers had created was more than a successful business. It was a new model of American retail, one that would influence the industry for generations to come. In the cold Seattle winter of 1963, 3 aging brothers stood at a crossroads that would alter the trajectory of American retail forever. Everett, Elmer, and Lloyd Nordstrom had built their father's humble shoe store into a regional empire. But now they faced a decision that would transform not just their business, but the very nature of shopping in America. Before them lay an opportunity: Best's Apparel, a temple of high fashion that had clothed Seattle's elite since 1925. Its founder, Ivan Lovitch Best, had reached his own crossroads after his wife Dorothy's death in 1958. The store's polished marble floors and elegant displays represented everything the Nordstrom shoe business was not. Yet Lloyd Nordstrom saw something deeper, a bridge to the future, a way to preserve and expand the family legacy as retirement loomed. The timing was crucial. The brothers' sons were coming of age, eager to prove themselves in the family business. Young Bruce Nordstrom, who had started in the stockroom at 9 years old for 25 cents an hour, now stood ready at 30. The purchase of Best's would give these sons the canvas they craved. The acquisition reshaped everything. Within 3 years, the distinct identities of Nordstrom shoes and Best's Apparel began to blur. In 1966, at Tacoma Mall, a new creation emerged: Nordstrom Best, a hybrid that would redefine American retail. The sons watched and learned as their fathers orchestrated this transformation, knowing their time approached. That moment came in 1968. The 3 brothers, their work complete, stepped aside. Into their place stepped 5 young men: Bruce Nordstrom, his cousins James and John, their brother-in-law John A. McMillan, and Robert E. Bender. They were young, ambitious, and hungry to prove themselves worthy of their inheritance. Under their guidance, Nordstrom unleashed its full potential. The 1971 public offering provided capital for expansion, though the family maintained iron control of voting rights. By 1973, sales exceeded $100 million, and the first Nordstrom Rack opened in Seattle, a new concept in discount retail. But it was 1978 that marked the decisive moment, the opening of their first store outside the Pacific Northwest, in Orange County, California. The regional chain was going national, and the transformation was staggering. Under Bruce Nordstrom's leadership, the company exploded from 7 shoe stores to 156 locations across 27 states, with revenues soaring from $40 million to $8.6 billion. By 1980, only Saks, Fifth Avenue, and Lord & Taylor stood ahead of Nordstrom in specialty retail. Yet, through it all, through the computerization and modernization, through the expansion and transformation, one thing remained constant. The lessons Bruce had learned in that stockroom at age 9, earning his quarter an hour. Service, quality, value. The principles his grandfather had established in 1901 still guided the empire he now commanded. They called it the Nordstrom Way, but in the mahogany-paneled boardrooms of America's great retail establishments, Saks Fifth Avenue, Lord & Taylor, the giants that had dominated American luxury shopping for generations, executives whispered about it with a mixture of admiration and fear. For in the early 1980s, something unprecedented was stirring in the American West, something that would reshape the landscape of American retail forever. The company's ambitions reached far beyond the Cascade Mountains that loomed outside their windows. They planned to nearly double their presence, adding 25 new stores in a single decade, a pace of expansion that would have seemed reckless to more cautious minds. And in the numbers, there was a story that could not be ignored. In just 3 years, from 1980 to 1983, Nordstrom's sales exploded from $407 million to $787 million. And their earnings, that most crucial measure of retail success, more than doubled from $19.7 million to $40.2 million. But these figures, impressive as they were, masked an even more significant transformation taking place beneath the surface. California became their proving ground, and what began in 1978 with a single store in Orange County grew into an intricate network of retail fortresses. By 1984, 7 full-size stores dotted the California landscape. 5 years later, that number had tripled to 22. Each new location served as both embassy and beachhead, spreading the gospel of Nordstrom's legendary customer service across the Golden State. But it was the company's eastward expansion that truly revealed the scope of their ambition. In March 1988, Nordstrom planted their flag in McLean, Virginia, just outside the nation's capital. The 238,000-square-foot store became an immediate sensation, generating over $1 million in first-day sales and $100 million in its first year. And that same year, they unveiled their crown jewel in San Francisco, a 350,000-square-foot temple of luxury retail, complete with 103 champagne brands and a health spa that rivaled those of ancient Rome. The company's method of expansion followed a carefully orchestrated pattern, establishing regional strongholds that would serve as launching pads for further growth. Each new store became a training ground, each market a carefully cultivated garden that would bear fruit for decades to come. By 1995, as Nordstrom prepared to enter New York State, the very heart of American retail, they had opened 46 new full-line department stores in less than 2 decades. But in the corridors of the White Plains store, amid the soft rustle of silk dresses and the quiet murmur of satisfied customers, few could have guessed at the storm gathering on the horizon, a transformation that would shake American retail to its very foundations. In the waning days of the 20th century, as the digital revolution began reshaping American commerce, the leaders of Nordstrom, a century-old retail institution built on the foundation of face-to-face service, faced a momentous decision. The year was 1998. Amazon, barely 3 years old, was already threatening to upend traditional retail. The question before Nordstrom was stark: adapt or decline. The launch of Nordstrom.com that year represented more than merely a website. It marked the beginning of a transformation that would reshape every aspect of how the company operated. The magnitude of this change cannot be understood without grasping what Nordstrom had been: a temple of personal service where sales associates knew customers by name and hand-wrote thank you notes. Now, with a few clicks, customers could browse and purchase without ever speaking to another human being. The success was swift and decisive. Within 2 years, industry analysts at the Forrester Group had declared Nordstrom's online experience superior to all competitors. But more significant changes lay ahead. By 2019, a third of all Nordstrom's sales, billions of dollars, would flow through digital channels, a transformation so complete that the company's physical stores, once its crown jewels, were being reimagined as fulfillment centers for online orders. The architects of this transformation were Pete and Eric Nordstrom, fourth-generation heirs to the family business. These brothers, raised in the tradition of their grandfather's handshake deals and their father's obsession with customer service, now found themselves presiding over a technological revolution. Their response was to create Nordstrom Local, stores without inventory, an idea that would have been inconceivable to their ancestors, and to develop systems allowing customers to reserve items online and try them on in stores within 2 hours. Yet, even as Nordstrom mastered the digital realm within American borders, its attempt to expand into Canada revealed the limits of its influence. The company's 2014 entry into the Canadian market had been meticulously planned, with flagship stores in Calgary, Ottawa, Vancouver, and Toronto. But by 2023, all would be shuttered, leaving 2,500 workers jobless, a stark reminder that even the most prestigious retailers could stumble in unfamiliar territory. The challenges of expansion paled in comparison to the political maelstrom that engulfed Nordstrom in 2017. The decision to drop Ivanka Trump's fashion line, officially attributed to poor sales, thrust the company into the center of national politics. When President Donald Trump publicly condemned the company, Nordstrom found itself facing a test unlike any in its 116-year history. The market's response, a 4% stock price increase despite presidential criticism, demonstrated that old institutions could sometimes withstand new pressures. Throughout these transformations, one constant remained: the company's obsession with customer service, a tradition dating back to John W. Nordstrom's first shoe store in 1901. As Chief Innovation Officer Geevy Thomas emphasized, technology would serve this mission, not replace it. In 2023, with the appointment of family member Jamie Nordstrom as Chief Merchandising Officer, the company reaffirmed this commitment to its founding principles while acknowledging the inevitability of change. And now, we'd like to see you in the comments. Were you aware that Nordstrom is a family-owned business, as it were? And what is your opinion of the brand overall? We can't wait to hear from you. And thanks for joining us for another episode of Old Money Luxury. With that said, cheers. Until next time.